Welcome back. This is the Dawning Podcast's Alt History series, part 5 of 5. If you haven't already, please check out parts 1 through 4. Today's episode is called Conclusions. So to recap, pseudo-archaeology actively promotes myths that are routinely used in the service of white supremacy, racialized nationalism, colonialism, and the dispossession and oppression of indigenous peoples. Anthropologists, then and now, are not without fault, but the establishment of the scientific methods employed by anthropologists today helps mitigate the faults and preserve the in situ status in their records for posterity. In promoting ambiguity and multiple historical realities, most History Channel programs encourage a kind of audience participation in deciding historical truth. By embracing this, we lose an appreciation for experts, evidence, and even facts. A member of the archaeology or historical community could never get away with that. So why should we let people who spout alt history theories? What I would prefer is to celebrate history and archaeology for what they are, because there's really no need to embellish it with fiction. While those who embrace pseudo-archaeology, spread alternate history, and believe in quote-unquote advanced ancient technology are distancing themselves from the modern academics in history and archaeology, they are also adopting viewpoints that have problematic evidence with unscientific methodologies and picking up where the earliest practitioners of archaeology left off, with outlooks and methods that promote site destruction, imperialism, and even racism. Although anthropology and historical research are not without their bad actors and some sordid pasts themselves, modern academia rebukes them and takes strides to teach against ethnocentrism and methodologies employed by people like Schliemann and Belzoni. Whether the alt history people realize their mistakes or knowingly follow outdated thinking remains to be addressed, and likely never will be. The rift between alternate history and what they call mainstream or establishment archaeology, or academia, is on their side a rejection of scientific methods and peer-reviewed research on the grounds that the establishment is hiding the truth, while on the academic side, their rejection stems largely from unscientific methodologies and their befuddlement at alt history's adherence to often racist theories that have been debunked for decades. I'd imagine it's also a bit like having the past incarnation of embarrassing points in your history just coming back to haunt you with loud voices that keep the flame of ignorance alive. Like, the alt history people represent a past that academic archaeology is embarrassed about. But then if we forget that past, we're likely to repeat it. So maybe the only people the alt history side is helping are the academics, while decrying their withholding of that truth that never seems to fit the evidence. I'd like to commend the research done by channels like History with Sci and World of Antiquity. I know there are tons of others. I just haven't vetted them enough myself, but these two I've watched dozens of their videos and I really like them. One of the things that I didn't have time to really get into, that's a lie. One of the things that I actually refused to research for this episode was Helena Blavatsky's Theosophy. I did a quick skim over the Wikipedia page for it, and there's so much stupid there. I don't have time to smash it all. It's not worth the time. I remember a friend of mine handed me one of her books, I don't know, years ago, and I opened it to somewhere in the middle, tried to read a paragraph, and I mean, I like 19th century writing to the confusion of all of my friends. I have yet to find a reason to actually delve into that. and the level of yikes displayed on just the Wikipedia page was enough to deter me this time. Finally, there's a book by Carl Sagan called The Demon-Haunted World: Science as a Candle in the Dark. My friend sent me this passage. He'd read this book when he was a kid, and it really helped him figure some things out for himself, and I'd like to share this quote with you right now. Science is more than a body of knowledge. It is a way of thinking. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the key manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness. I'd like to ask you today to donate to a cause in Myanmar. More than 600 people have been killed in Myanmar since the country's military announced it would be taking over for at least a year on February 1st of 2021. Military security forces continue to escalate the violence, opening fire at protesters as the death toll grows each day. Dozens of children have been murdered, some in their own homes, and the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners estimates more than 2,000 have been detained. Yet anti-coup protests and demonstrations persist as Burmese people throughout the country stage acts of civil disobedience and risk their lives opposing the newfound but not unfamiliar military rule. Even before the pandemic and subsequent coup, Myanmar was a country in poverty, working its way toward quasi-democracy after a 2011 transition from military control to free elections. But 2021's coup and the resulting unrest have left the country in chaos and its people in danger. If you have the means, I encourage you to donate. Even $1 is more than nothing. And if you can't afford that, sharing a link is a great help. Please see the top link in the description. Next time, we'll start a new series on ancient Mesopotamia, focusing on the historical Gilgamesh. Thank you so much for listening to the Dawning Podcast. I'll see you next Friday.